Sharon, hi colleagues. Okay. Hi Sharon, hi colleagues. Can you hear me and can you see the screen?
We can, yes. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm very excited to have a chance to speak with you for looking at platforms such as ORCID and social media and how these can be used to build up a really good online research profile without taking away anything from the quality of the work that's been shared. We just know that the traditional publishing platforms, there usually are delays in how your work is shared in the traditional formats, and increasingly research media and social media are playing an important part. So I can't see, just a bit of housekeeping, I can't see if there's anything coming up in the chats. So Sharon can either at that time alert me to a question or comment, or we can take questions afterwards. So yes, I'm the principal librarian of Digital Scholarship, which is a new unit in the library. You may well also know me as being the Scholarly Communications, which I vacated that position in February this year. Today I'm going to talk about scholarly communication, researcher identity, and then going to speak about ORCID, open access, and going through open access, we will talk briefly about data management plans and research data management, then reference management software, research media, and then social media in research. There is definitely a need for social media and research, and I'm so glad that Sharon had this wonderful tweet today. I don't know, there we go. So just briefly, scholarly communication. This is a really good definition about what scholarly communication is, and the role that we are providing here in the library. So it's a system through which research and other scholarly writings are created, evaluated for quality, disseminated to the scholarly community, and preserved for future use. Essentially, it's everything that you're doing here at Rhodes in your studies, and you would like all this work to be archived and stored for future use, whether you might want to come back to it and use the data at a later stage, or you are happy for your work to be added to the knowledge base in your research area. And in scholarly communication, this includes the formal means of communication, such as publication and peer-reviewed journals, and informal channels, and this is where social media comes into play. Okay, so we're talking about scholarly communications and identity. And this slide I put here because it just provides a really useful visual image or visual way of thinking about researcher identity. So in our private lives, and you are the researcher, you're in the middle of the ring, your private life will be identified by having an ID document, a driver's license, perhaps a passport, bank cards, and a staff or a student card. And this is how you are identified out there in the world. In your researcher's environment, you will be identified in another way. So at the beginning of your researcher's life cycle, you would be starting off by creating your research project, and at that time you would be thinking about your chapters, your literature review, and your methodology, how and what you're going to collect, what kind of data you'll be collecting, eventually some sort of analysis, and then a conclusion to all of that. And as you go along the way, you will be needing to file, store, archive your work, and you would most likely be using folders on your PC, probably some software like Excel. By the time you have finished your research journey or your research project, you would be thinking about where are you going to publish your research. Would it be in journals and in print form or in electronic form? Would that journal be an open access journal? So this icon here with that little lock there, This is a common icon for open access journals. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. Would your work be perhaps published in a book or a book chapter? And so there you have print books or an ebook. And these ebooks are becoming not everyday life, but gaining momentum in our collections. But with all this publishing comes questions of how is your work going to be reused? And is it going to be reused according to copyright, and what sort of copyright would you be looking at? Traditionally, we all have an understanding of traditional copyrights, but in an open access arena, we have to consider other copyright licenses, and that could be Creative Commons. And this is where you would then need to have some idea of what Zenodo and Figshare are able to do for you in this regard, in Creative Commons licensing. And then, of course, your normal copyright and your insights. With all of these platforms that we're having talking about now, you would have some sort of researcher ID starting to develop. And you would see then you have a number of IDs. And those then would also then include a researcher ID, which is your official ID on the Web of Science platform. You might have started creating a Google Scholar Citations ID, and then perhaps a Scopus Author ID, which is on the Elsevier platforms if you are publishing or thinking of publishing in those areas. So this is more of the traditional way of looking at the researcher life cycle, your PhD, your master's, and so on life cycles. And these are things that you should be thinking about at this stage if you are looking at academia as being your profession and or research, or as your profession once you leave Rhodes. Okay, but having had a look at this, you will also see that there's some fusion here of social media as well. And if you look at the next slide, it becomes even more busy. Okay, so this is where you can now bring social media into your research journey. So in addition to your PC file system and your Excel spreadsheets, you can manage your data by using areas like Dropbox, Google Drive, Mendeley, or Zotero. There you're looking at reference management tools, as well as storing your research and readings somewhere. When you're looking at publishing and disseminating your research, it might not be finished. You might still be working with your research project because it's a long-term one, but you would like to collaborate with other people in your research field, and also find people that you might want to write articles with or share information with. And if you may have already come across domains such as the ResearchGate or academia.edu, those are research media. You may be sharing your work on Facebook. The more common one is Twitter. And if you're in humanities, Instagram and Mendeley are huge sharing platforms for your research. Reuse, you could be your work could be reused in Wikimedia, which is a branch that we are using in the library a lot. We are contributing to that platform in a big way. There might be blogs that you are following, YouTube channels that you're following. The CPGS one is one of those, and then also Vimeo if you're creating videos. All along the way, you might discover, and people would be discovering your research through Google Scholar, and Figshare, the institutional repository. And how would they be doing that? Through social media and Google. The two are so interlinked, and you will see this as we go along in the presentation. Okay, you will have seen that you, at this point in your research journey, that you might have already accumulated a number of researcher identities. And this could be overwhelming, it could be tedious to manage. And as you progress in your research journey, especially if you're going to stay in academia, this is going to become a huge problem. And this is where ORCID, which stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID, this is where they came into play in 2003 and developed software along the lines of social media technology, wherein or whereby you, the researcher, can connect all your research on a whole variety of platforms, despite how your research has been published. So, as a woman, you might have started publishing your research using your maiden name, and then if you have then found yourself married, or somebody found themselves to marry too, you could be publishing under your married surname, in which case it makes it difficult for funders or academic raters to identify you as being the person that you say you are. ORCID actually solves this kind of situation. So when they realized how powerful ORCID is and was, the developers then built ORCID for you to create an online researcher identity. I have on the slide the ORCID register link, and this is where, if you haven't yet registered for your ORCID, you would be encouraged to do so now, and we in the digital scholarship unit are really happy to help you to do this. And again, everything that I'm going to be speaking about, please know that we are here to help you in all of this. Okay, so looking at ORCID, how do you build an online researcher profile? When you've registered for your ORCID, all you will see at that time will be this top left-hand corner where you will see your name. You will be allocated an ORCID number, which is actually starting from those noughts. Okay, that is actually your ORCID number. But this HTTPS is how you will find yourself and your ORCID profile through the web. Okay, you would need to populate your ORCID profile yourself. So you would start off with a biography, then you could add your education, your employment, your works. I am not an academic, I am a librarian, so you won't see academic works here, but the principles would be the same. So your works would show the title of your work, what year it was published, and how you can find that work on but via a usable link, whether it be a DOI, which is a digital object identifier, which is attached to any digitally born object, whether that be a print image or a PDF, your thesis. All of those will be allocated a DOI. We are associated with Crossref, who issue the DOIs. Okay. So that would be adding all your works and building up that kind of profile. You will also see on the left-hand side, also known as, so I might have published under DL Martindale or D Martindale or D. Martindale and so on. This is where the social media technology picks up you and your research published under different names and brings it all into your works. And provided that you have used the wizards, when you create links between your ORCID profile and the publishers. Sometimes researchers have needed help in this instance, and if you need help, please, you will know where to find us. We are promoting South African and African research to the world out there. One is to obviously promote South African and African research, but also to make other people aware of what has been researched in South Africa and who those researchers are. And this is critically important for you. So we advocate that you say that you acknowledge that you are from South Africa. Your keywords would be your main research areas, and then you would list them here. But here under the websites, and this is what I would like you to take note of, this is where we are able to connect your ORCID with all your other profiles. So if you have an academia.ag profile, LinkedIn, Mendeley, ResearchGate, these are the more informal profiles. And then the more formal profiles would be your researcher ID and your Scopus author ID. And those are linked to Web of Science and Elsevier databases and platforms respectively. Okay. Why am I spending time on ORCID? The reason is, one, it will be mandatory for you to have an ORCID when you submit an application for your thesis proposals, if you haven't got one already. And the idea behind that is your ORCID, this is your researcher in the middle, your ORCID will be connected automatically with the Rhodes University ORCID profile. Once that is done, the NRF, right down here, will be notified at that time that your thesis is now completed, and so they will then their records will be updated automatically. And at the same time, if you were actually writing research articles, the publisher would also be notified through your ORCID that you are publishing, and other publishers would also know about this. So that's why this is called a connect and collect system, and why it's often referred to as the enter once, reuse often system. And it just shows how interoperable the ORCID is and how crucial it is to have your ORCID. Many people do not like to brag about themselves. So one of the best ways for anybody to know about you is through your email. So here's just a copy of my email, obviously all your details, but right at the bottom here is your ORCID number, and it is linkable. And I really believe that this is a really good way to make yourself known and to find collaborators in your research field interest areas. I'm approached quite often through my signature to collaborate with librarians who are interested in the same areas that I'm interested in, same sort of topics that I'm interested in. So right down at the bottom, that is what the ORCID symbol is all about. These next slides are all about open access, and ORCID is part of open access, but not officially, and not it's more to do, ORCID is more to do with research. Okay, so we're going to speak a bit about open access, and this is Peter Suber, and he has the best definition of open access, where he says OA literature is digital, online, free of charge, and free of most copyright and licensing restrictions. OA removes price barriers, which is through subscriptions, licensing fees, pay-to-view fees, and then permission barriers, which is copyright and licensing restrictions. I am sure you have all come across an article that you really want to read, and then you realize, oh, heck, Rhodes Library doesn't subscribe to this journal. I can't access this article. I'm going to show you a few ways where you could possibly get around that, even though Rhodes doesn't subscribe to that particular journal. Okay. Just to make a note here, you've got two routes of open access. You've got the green route and you've got the gold route, and those are those icons. And I mention that because I'm going to talk about the gold route. So, sorry, the green route. Let me just go back. I'm going to talk about the green route, which is the self-archiving system. And you might not be aware of it, but if you have already written a thesis, we will already have your thesis on our institutional repository, and that happens between the relationship we have with the Registrar's Division and the library. And so we self-archive your thesis on our institutional repository. Why do we do that? Because we want your thesis to be made publicly available. The only time it won't be publicly available is if we have been instructed that you have an embargo on your thesis for perhaps your research data might be needed to write an article at a later stage. So this will automatically happen, and the way in which it happens, and the copyright sits with you, the author, and also the university. Okay, it's in a way a dual copyright, and it will be copyright compliant using Creative Commons licensing. And there are 6 different Creative Commons licenses. And if you're not sure which one you would need to use because you want your work to be used in a specific way, your librarians can help you with that. So that is, we're going to talk a little bit more about the green route. Our institutional repository here at Rhodes, we call it the Rhodes Digital Commons, and right down at the bottom here, there is a link to that Digital Commons. So if you would like to see your thesis, you could, and online, this is where you will go. But the institutional repository is a digital collection of outputs created within a university or research institution. Okay, so we're encouraging you to register your ORCID, but we're also saying we want your research output on the institutional repository. Why and what is the difference? So the institutional repository is your research outputs that's been created through Rhodes, through your time when you're at Rhodes University. Whereas ORCID is your identity and your identity alone. So your ORCID will follow you to whichever institution you go to next. And your next institution will have and ask you to then publish or deposit in any research outputs at that institution in their institutional repository. So that's how it works. All these repositories are copyright compliant, and we will either populate the repository with your preprint or latest version of your work before publication, or if we've given permission and it's open access, then through the publisher's PDF. You might not be ready at this point to be thinking about these things, but we really want you to be aware of them so that you know what to expect when you progress through your journey. So the institutional repository, it is open access. I've got here unpaywall and view PDF EndNote click. I will explain these icons in a little bit more detail later on, but I just would like you to be aware of them and how we establish whether a journal is an accredited journal is through Sherpa Romeo, and you're very welcome to use Sherpa Romeo to find out if the journal you would like to publish in is an accredited journal and not a predatory journal. And predatory journals are something you really need to be aware of and think about, and if you're really unsure about which journal to publish in and if it is a predatory journal, again, the research office and here in the library we can assist you with that. And we come back to Creative Commons. Okay, the types of items that would be deposited on the Digital Commons would be journals, conference papers, reports, research data, if you have images or audio clips, if you have video recordings of forums, group forums, those would also be included in our Digital Commons, depending on embargoes and so on, and those would be instructed to us by yourselves and your supervisors. Okay, this is just a very quick slide to show you the benefits of the Digital Commons. And when we come to Figshare, these values are exactly the same values. It showcases your work and as a significant and original academic contribution at the frontiers of a discipline or field. Your theses are instrumental and adding to the knowledge base of your work. It showcases the institutional quality of the work, which is satisfied a peer review and merit publication. That is why you have external examiners in the thesis environment, and also ethical clearance and all those requirements made of you. It provides easy access to the data, and that is because this is open access, and we are able to accumulate hits, views, download statistics, all which contribute to your NRF and academic funding and rating opportunities. Okay. Gold Root, which is now the symbol down at the bottom on the right-hand corner. If you are, some of you may already be publishing with researchers, and I know in the environmental sciences there's a lot of publications that I uploaded last week where the articles were all open access, and the supervisor and his group of student researchers were all listed there in the articles in open access journals. And this makes your work immediately available to the public free of charge and in line with open access requirements at the time of their initial publication. There are a lot of challenges that go with open access publishing, and please, we are here to help you navigate that journey. If you're looking for an open access journal to publish in, a really good place to go is the directory of open access journals. And another really good platform is the Public Library of Science, which is often referred to as PLOS, and you can go and have a look there. So I've put in the slide as a reminder, should you want to have a look at these at a later stage. I'm sure you're not thinking about it right now. Okay, And I've put in this slide because a lot of publishers, traditional publishers, they are now also offering a hybrid situation where they're saying, we would like you to publish in our journal, but you have a choice of doing it in the traditional way, or you could opt for open access. And again, we can help you navigate this scenario. Okay, going into research data management. When you start your proposals, you will have at that stage already started thinking about your methodologies. And so research data management starts at the point when you start putting your proposals together. How are you going to collect your data, qualitative, quantitative? Where are you going to store your data? How are you going to store your data? And this is what research data management is all about. At Rhodes, I'll just explain a little bit more about this. The research data management is the process of controlling your information generated during a research project. And I think these are conversations you need to have with your supervisors. We uploaded a thesis last week, and there was a huge amount of research data that was came together with that thesis, which we were asked to please make available to the public. So we've loaded the thesis onto our digital commons, the theses one, and we've loaded the research data into our Figshare. And already there are so many hits and public views of that research data. So this is the library is managing a very effective way that's trawled by Google to make your data sets more visible. And if you want to know more about research data management, there's a library guide there. We call them LibGuides. And if you want to have a look at our Figshare platform, that is the link to the research data platform. And this is the platform, both this one and the digital commons I spoke about earlier, have been bought by the university, and we host it and manage it here at the library. What kind of work can you store in your Figshare profile? I've got a busy slide here, and in your time, you can come and have a look at them, at the different formats, the physical objects and the digital objects, what kind of data, research data, and I know research data makes it sound as if it's a whole collection of data, but it could be a video. We've got some chemistry videos, and we've got some OERs in our platform at our Figshare at the moment. Okay, moving on to now becoming kind of more less formal tools, reference management tools. Reference management tools help you to create and manage your list of references for research projects. Hopefully you have heard about these tools, and they are helping you to manage your list of references without you having to do this manually. And hopefully you would have heard of RefWorks, which is what we subscribe to here in the library. So this is the RefWorks reference management tool. Then there's also Zotero and Mendeley, which are open source tools, which we teach you how to use them here in the library, and we also install the programs onto your laptops or your PCs. There are other ones. The Word one is quite often used. And really, these digital tools help you to reference your work and help you avoid plagiarism in a different way. And there is a LibGuide here, link to the LibGuide if you would like some more information about those. Research media, I have put this slide here. It is something that we cannot advocate in the library, and we cannot help you populate it, but we can help you use it. Because ResearchGate and academia are research media formats where you can share your work in a very informal way. The reason why we can't help you is because it's not copyright compliant, but there are really excellent platforms if you want to look for collaborators in your research field. So I've just put the slide here. It's just so that you are aware of it. And the value of having research media is you can talk with peers, you can connect and collaborate with peers in your field. You can follow them in your subject area. You can create reference lists of your research, and they are linkable to your your ORCID profile, and I showed you that when I showed you my profile. And if you want to know more about research media, there's a LibGuide there for that. Okay, social media becoming more informal. When I started talking about ORCID, I spoke about ORCID being developed using social media technology. And that shows you how powerful ORCID is and how powerful social media is. And we all know that social media is the talk of the day. I like this definition by the balancemb.com group, because they describe social media as any digital tool that allows users to quickly create and share content with the public. And that is important when you're trying to share your research, especially at this stage, or if you're at a conference and you want to share something that somebody's spoken about. The tweet is the fastest way possible, and scientists are the biggest users of Twitter. And you will see in one of my slides just now what I mean by that. So social media encompasses a wide range of websites and apps. Some, like Twitter, specialize in sharing links and short written messages. Others, like Instagram and TikTok, are built to optimize the sharing of photos and videos. And I think I don't have to say anything more about that. So the question left is to ask, is there a place for social media in the research life cycle? And I say definitely there is. Okay, I know lots of supervisors are not too sure about this, but let's just have a look at the next slides, and you can think about this yourself. Okay. Just to say that the Rhodes University has a Twitter account, and what we do with our Twitter account, our research one, is every week research that has been published, we will pick up those on alerts that we've set up with the publishers, and we retweet every research output that has happened and occurred in that week. So here's one for political and international studies. I think that's a good point to talk about bibliometrics and altmetrics. So when you are reading research articles, you may have been advised to look at how many times that article has been cited as one of the ways in which you can determine whether this article would be a very good article to use in your thesis or in your own research article. So we call that citation impact, citation analysis, and in the library sense of the world, it's called bibliometrics, because it's essentially metrics of materials, print materials and electronic materials. Okay, in the recent times, Altmetrics has become an important citation analysis tool as well, although it's not currently used by people like the NRF. They do take a look at Altmetrics, and you'll see in a moment what that means. So Altmetrics is a metric at the article level. It tracks the source and how often your article or your thesis has been shared via social media. And you may have seen already on research papers this altmetric little circle here. It's quite a colorful circle, or you may have seen Plum Analytics. Okay, so what does all that mean? This is an article that was written in January 2020 in Bioscience. Bioscience has a impact factor of 8.282. The normal impact factor, or the benchmarking impact factor, is 1. Okay. You can see that this article, you can all the normal facets are here. You can open the PDF, you can cite it, you can get permissions if you want to read this article. Here under share, if you click that, you would see that you can share this article by Twitter, Facebook, and other avenues. There's also Mendeley. But if you look here, this is an altmetric of 11,016, and this was just from a couple of days ago when I took the slide. So what does that mean to you? It means that this article has been mentioned in 546 news outlets. It's been blogged 69 times. It appears in 2 policy sources. It's been retweeted 8,263 times, shared by 54 Facebook pages, and so on. If you look further down, this article has been cited 62 times in dimensions, okay, and it's been read by 832 Mendeley readers. So you can already see the impact that this article has, okay. Breaking it down further, United Kingdom, this article has been published. The interest in this article mostly comes from the United States, where it's 11%, followed by the UK, Australia, Germany, and Canada. If you look further down at a demographic breakdown, this article has been interested by 6,875 members of the public. Okay, sits by 1,010 scientists, and then also if you look further down, journalists, bloggers, and editors. There's 3% there, and if you look here, by doctors. So although doctors are not researchers in our academic environment, they have found value in this article as well. And members of the public could also include citizen science. And citizen science is becoming a big scientific sharing media as well. Looking at Google Scholar, when you look at Google Scholar, you look at this article. This article has been cited by 483 people, which would indicate that the article is a good one. This article appears in 8 different versions, and because most of those articles appear in Web of Science, that is why the Web of Science is showing here. Okay, I want to have another look at another article, and the reason why I want to do that is I want to show you Unpaywall. You might remember the Unpaywall icon in one of my previous slides when I was talking about the institutional repository. This Unpaywall is a Chrome extension, which has been loaded onto my laptop, as has been the EndNote Click. An EndNote Click is a Web of Science a web browser. The importance of these two are that although this article, I cannot, as a Rhodes University staff member, access this article because new microbes and new infections is something that we do not subscribe to in our subscriptions. I can access these articles through open access platforms, which are legally compliant by copyright. So if these items are loaded on these extensions are loaded on your PC, you click on them and you can be taken to the open access version of that article. Okay. Mendeley, this is something that only crops up. You don't have to download it as an extension browser. It already appears there because Mendeley has been bought out by Science Direct, which is Elsevier and Scopus. Okay, so there are different ways to break across the barriers of subscriptions. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this article, is to show you that. Okay, I'm just going to, this next slide is as if the article, if you have just scrolled down, and you will see here the article metrics. The article has been cited 129 times, and it has been read 359 times, and there are more mentions and blogs, and you will see now the Plum and Analytics emblem here. So I'm just going to open up Plum, and here it gives you a huge, a bigger breakdown. This here on the left-hand side is your Plum Analytics. What do they call it? It's not an icon, it's a bubble box. Okay. Again, the metrics breakdown. There have been 129 formal citations on other research articles, 359 captures, and those have been through the Mendeley readers, and it has been mentioned in one blog. This article was published in 2020. I forgot to go back to the date, but this just shows you the powerful impact of social media. And why did I? Oh, that the blog where this article was mentioned was in the blog of Neurology and Neuropsychiatry of COVID-19. And there's the bibliographic details there. So again, just showing you the power of social media and how it can be used to support traditional means. This slide, I spoke about research data management earlier, and that we have the Figshare platform. Figshare is open access, so you already see that open access icon there. And this was a video which was submitted by Ingrid Schudel. I don't know if I can see her name here, but it was, yes, there we are, Ingrid, and it was submitted in September 2020. By the time I took a copy of the slide, she had 133 views and already 33 downloads, and her her slide has been tweeted once, and we can break that down further. So I just wanted to show you the power of our Figshare platform, because it has been trawled by the Google engines. Okay, so a slide for the humanities. We often are afraid that because we're in the sciences, everything is pointed towards the sciences, and certainly that was the case a couple of years ago. But this slide is a really good article. I've just given you the name of the article, and that it's a preprint of the article. And I've also given the abstract. And what I have done here is just highlighted that Mendeley has the highest coverage of journal articles, followed by Twitter. Mendeley 61%, followed by Twitter, and then others were shared. This article was shared by blogs and by Facebook. And books, on the other hand, are often tweeted. So where the scientists make a lot of use and greater use of Twitter as their social media domain or choice, humanities are really making themselves made more visible through Mendeley, and then by Twitter, and then by library things. And then this is just the link to that particular journal. In a nutshell, we have covered a lot, and I'd just like to just bring it all together by saying everything that we have spoken about is about your researcher, and making yourself and your research more visible. And the platforms that I have spoken about are definitely the ways that you could be thinking about to do this. We in the library are trying to make ourselves a central archive for your work, and we will always assist you in building your researcher profile, and to do it in a way that increases the readership, the reuse and dissemination of your research outputs, and also to keep a track of this, and in a copyright and compliant manner. And then just to give the names of your principal librarians for your research field. So in science and pharmacy, you would be contacting Tundewe Menzi, commerce and law, Jill Otto, humanities and education, Linda Cartwright. And then there's also me, and my details are here too. And I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you. And I hope that we have covered some, oops, let me get out of that, stop sharing. Hope that we can help you along your research journey, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Debbie. There was a lot in there, and I think people do have questions. So can you please post your questions in the chat, or if you would like to actually just ask your question out loud, you're more than welcome to put up your hand or put an M in the chat for microphone, and we can hand that over to you. Louisa, do you want to ask your question in a little bit more detail?
I can. I just got to read what I wrote quickly, sorry. Oh, yes. Debbie, you were talking about the open access extensions that we can use on our browser. Can you just speak to that again, please?
Yes. So the one is called Unpaywall, and the other one is called EndNote Click. So if you just Unpaywall is UNPAY and then wall. And if you open them in like, normal Google search, they will ask you, do you want to install as an extension onto Chrome? And you would say yes, and you just follow the instructions, and then it immediately comes onto your laptop as an extension. And the same would be for EndNote Click.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Are we talking about Chrome here though? Because I have Unpaywall, but I have it as a Chrome extension on my browser.
Yes, Chrome extension.
Okay, so I think if you're using other browsers, you may not find those extensions. I mean, generally speaking, I think we kind of assume most people use Chrome these days. But yeah, these Chrome extensions are very, very easy to install.
They are. Yeah.
Super quick.
If you're using a different search engine, we can try and work through that together also.
The other thing that I also wanted to just remind people is that open access publishing is fantastic, but it is also useful to bear in mind that it is not free necessarily. Yes. Gold open access in particular, when you're talking about Taylor and Francis, Wiley Blackwell, or Elsevier journals, often is quite expensive. I do know that the Rhodes University Research Office does have funds to assist researchers with what is called article processing charges, which is usually what those journals charge you for the open access publishing. But I do know that those funds are not unlimited. So before you choose to publish in an open access journal that will charge you page fees, you need to double check that those page fees will actually be paid for by the university, because we have had a few researchers on short courses who've been caught having to pay page fees out of their own pocket, and that can end up being quite expensive. We're talking a few £1,000 at minimum. So yeah.
I totally concur with you, Sharon, and I'm glad that you raised it. I was wondering whether to include APCs in this discussion, and I'm glad that you have. But I will also say that the library, we belong to a consortium called SANLIC, where they negotiate licensing deals, and we have 3 licensing deals for ACM and for Royal Society of Chemistry and the University of Cambridge Press. Okay, the Royal Society of Chemistry will only allow 1 or 2 tokens, but the other 2 that I've mentioned, we've got an agreement with them for 3 years. So if you're wanting to publish in any of their journals, it will be for free. They won't be charging the author APCs. It is what we call a transformative agreement, and publishers, especially the smaller ones, are realizing that they have to change the business model so that they can become totally open access and not have to charge the author fees. There is another biennial, I can't remember the other publisher, but anyway, those are the 3 that we're working with now.
Okay, so students could potentially then just drop one of the librarians an email and ask about that if they're considering.
Yes.
Okay, that's very helpful to know, because I will share that with students on my writing for publication course as well, because we always have a session on open access. But I will say that one of the most important points for me about this is I'm a journal editor, and I often look for people to review journal articles that I get. And one of the most frustrating things is when you can't find a page owned by that researcher that says, hello, this is who I am, this is what I research, here's some examples of my work, this is how you get hold of me. Especially if you are a postgraduate researcher or a postdoctoral researcher and you don't yet have a page on the university's webpage, it's really important for you to create some kind of digital footprint, because it's impossible for people, as Debbie says, to want to collaborate with you or ask you to review journal articles or get involved in projects if they can't get hold of you. And I think all of us in this room know how impatient we get with the internet. If we can't find things within 3, 4, 5 clicks, we give up. It doesn't exist. It's not out there. So people aren't going to persist sort of clicking through 5-6 pages of Google to try and find out how to get hold of you. You need to be on the first page of Google, which means you need to have some kind of profile. And ORCID is a fantastic one to use, but you also need to sometimes supplement that with other ways of enabling people to find you and get hold of you, especially if you want to be an academic or a researcher, even outside of academia. It's so important to be visible. Yeah.
Yes, and if you have an ORCID, Google, and somebody types in a researcher's name, ORCID is generally in the first 5.
Yes, yes,
top,
it is.
top
That
list.
and Google Scholar.
Yes.
Those are the ones that come up. And those are also,
Yes.
I think, the easiest ones to set up, because they import all of your stuff for you. You
Yes.
just tell ORCID to go and search the databases, and it comes back and says, we found these 6 things. Are these yours? And you say yes, and then it goes, excellent, we'll just add them to your profile then. So it's not like you even have to do it manually, like ResearchGate.
No. Conference papers, yes.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I have a question for you, Sharon.
Sure.
You're a journal editor. Have you registered
Yes.
yourself with Publons?
Yes, I do have a Publons profile. I think
Excellent.
that's another really important profile to have once you start
Yes.
reviewing.
And you've connected that with your ORCID?
Yes, I think it is connected with my ORCID.
Okay.
I will double check that, but I think
Okay.
it is. I'm usually pretty good about those kinds of things. Does anybody else have any other questions about any of this? Publishing open access, researcher profiles, social media. While we have Debbie with us. This is a very useful refresher for me as well, because I don't know anything about Figshare, and my supervisor said something about it to me the other day, and I thought, oh yes, okay, I'll go and figure that out. But now I'm quite motivated to go and figure Figshare out because I've never used it.
That's very easy. Yeah.
Good. Easy is good.
It's more user-friendly than the institutional repository, which we're working on.
Right. That's good to know. Any other questions for Debbie? You can just unmute your microphone and ask if you have one. Otherwise, type in the chat. All good? Okay. Well, you do have Debbie's contact details, so if you do have any more questions for her, you're more than welcome to contact her and ask. Thank you so much for making time to be here this afternoon, Debbie. It was really informative. I think there's a lot that we have to think about when we become researchers in any capacity. And I will say that having done all of this just about myself, it does take some effort to maintain your researcher profile every now and then. Especially once you start publishing, you do need to remind yourself to go in and upload things and make sure that your stuff's available to people. And I will say that I make quite deliberate choices now as a mid-career researcher to publish open access as much as possible, because what you have to remember is that the reason we publish is so that people will read our work, so that we will make an impact through our research on our field of scholarship or our field of practice, or both. And if you're only publishing in paywall journals, and globally, the shift is moving towards open access. There's a big consortium of libraries and librarians who are pushing open access in the EU, for example, at the moment. It's a very big change. There've also been some very big moves by libraries in California to ditch paywall subscriptions in favor of open access, and they're redirecting their budgets. So over the next sort of 5-10 years, we're going to see a lot more open access publishing come out. And I think it's important to really think about that, because it makes your work visible, and you own the copyright of your paper. So you can share it as widely as you want to with anybody you want to. You're not bound by embargoes and things like that. And for me as a researcher, the most important thing is not that my paper is in an amazing journal necessarily, but that people read my paper and cite my paper and think my paper is useful. So it is something to think about as you start publishing, because I know we often feel like we have to publish in the most amazing journals that are accredited so that we get the brownie points. But as of 2021, the Department of Higher Education and Training is now paying subsidy 4 papers that are published in journals that are listed on the directory of open access journals, which Debbie mentioned. So that is something to bear in mind, that even the DHCT is recognizing the power of open access publishing. So I think, be encouraged to try and find open access, or to make your work available through all these different channels so that people can find it and read it and get excited by it and use it in their own research. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, everybody is just saying thank you in the chat for your time and for this information. And for those of you who had load shedding or had connection issues or were kicked out or want to recommend this to friends and fellow students, it will be available online later this evening or tomorrow morning. So you'll be able to access it there. And hopefully we'll see you at 1 or more of our upcoming 3 sessions remaining for the semester. But thank you all very much, everybody. Enjoy your evening and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.